Sinclair Toffa, he's back. He's
Oh,
smiling. How we
how are we
doing?
doing? Nice to be back.
We're
Thank you for
doing
having
great.
me.
News on the timeline. We're making money. We're closing deals. Speaking of deals, tell
Amen.
us about Deal, and then
Speaking
we
of
can
deals, there you go.
tell
Wonderful.
us about the deal news. This is sweet, man.
And then I believe it's our first time meeting.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
I've been
Zach Fowler.
I've
How
been
we
here.
doing?
I've been here since season
I know
2,
you've
but
been
it
here.
was yeah.
You've been
I
here
was
for,
just
but like meeting, like
yeah,
He
this.
yeah.
It's
couldn't
nice
keep
to
his
see
pretty
you.
face behind the scenes for any longer. He had
I
to be
know
on the
Drew's
camera.
finally letting me out of the cave. I'm finally
Good.
getting some limelight. He's letting me go to Mexico
Congrats.
City. No, I'm just kidding.
Congrats
Yeah,
on
I got 2
congrats on
kids,
making
so
it out. Nice
yeah,
to see you, Zach.
awesome.
All right, so
Wonderful to be
Sinclair,
back. Yeah, let's dive in.
we're gonna peel a bunch of stuff back from Mural Pay. We'll go into the business, all the stuff that's going on there. But let's start with the news, and then we'll back up from there. So what's happening with Deal? We saw this last week, I believe. We were really stoked
Yeah.
to have you on to talk about this.
Well, thank you for having me. We are very excited about our partnership with Deel. We actually just announced it publicly last week. This is the big employer of record HR company out there, and they have been a phenomenal partner. They've been moving very quickly into the stablecoin space, and we are actually powering their Latin American stablecoin payouts. So for Deel employees that are in Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, and more throughout Latin America, they can finally actually withdraw their salaries in stablecoins, in USDC, in USDT, and really just giving more folks access to the dollar at scale and being able to use that money that they're earning anywhere they need it, right? Whether it's a
Mm.
stablecoin connected wallet, there's a lot of those that are growing extremely rapidly in Latin America, and so it's been an absolute pleasure working with the Deal team.
It's
And
epic.
let's can we break this down a little bit more? Because I think with the world of payroll is one that's it feels so similar yet foreign. We receive payroll every, every week, every month. But when you talk about payroll with all these different jurisdictions, I saw so many people on timeline saying, why does this matter? Deal already offered stablecoin payments for I think over a year, maybe closer to 2 years with BVNK. And you said something that I want to double click on, which is EOR, employer of record, and that this is actual stablecoin payments for employer of record. So can you help break down those 2 buckets and why this is even more impactful than just stablecoin payments to contractors?
Deal approached us with the problem. The problem was, how can we enable, from the Deal side, how can we enable our customers to pay their employees in stablecoins? And when it comes to employee payroll is actually very different from contractor payroll. And so there's a lot of localized regulation in all of these
Mm,
different countries in Latin America. And the compliance and regulatory aspect is very important here. And so for employee payroll to be considered legal in these jurisdictions in Latin America, money actually has to flow from effectively a Deal fiat bank account into a named employee fiat bank account and then into a stablecoin wallet. And so
mm,
that intermediary step of moving into a named employee bank account is actually really important because payroll can only be considered legal payroll if it goes from a fiat account to a fiat account.
Mm.
And around all of those local bank accounts, there's different laws around opening up those bank accounts,
yeah.
ensuring that those accounts are actually compliant, and how do you ensure the reporting behind that as well. So our forward deployed engineering team actually uncovered this through the process of working with them, the importance of those regulatory and compliance aspects.
Yeah, EOR is just this beast that, like, when you realize what Deal actually had to do to scale and to offer real payroll for companies that have, the benefits, they're covering taxes, in each of these that they have, 100 plus entities across the world to actually operate in each of these countries. And so your role in this bucket, because I think there was a few logos on this announcement. Your focus is primarily Latin America. Is that correct? Did we lose Sinclair?
Yeah, we'll bring him back. Zach, when you think about just where this gets personal for you, where did you like? What is so unique about EOR?
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say one because I think when I was at Rise, it was one of those areas where it took years for them to launch that project. A few years after I actually left, but then that's when I started to understand the nuances between, but with payroll, and I think Sinclair's back up. So let's bring him
I'm
back.
not seeing an ability to bring him back on. Do you?
No, I lost it. Andre, it looks like we have a bit of a
I'm gonna
bug, at least I'm
refresh.
managing.
I'm just gonna refresh. Oh, looks like we're good.
Yeah, give,
Disregard. Sinclair, can you hear us? Yes, still muted on our end. Andre can't hear him. Sinclair,
Are we
one more
back?
time. Yeah, we're back.
Are we
Okay,
back?
cool. And Zach is coming in. All right.
Good. We're back.
no, so I was gonna say the quick personal bit is just when I was working at Rise, it was payroll, but it was contractor payroll. Deal was definitely like the main competitor when I was selling into, call it more of the crypto native firms, but we did have people that were, just Web 2 companies hiring people
Yeah.
globally. And there was a lot of contractors that we were paying, a lot of contractors, but there it always came up, but I have full-time employees. How do we? And that was
Mm,
always the big hurdle. So that's Rise has launch that EOR product again. I think in a few jurisdictions, but again, also understanding from the in the regulatory environment how those funds actually have to flow, and I think also understanding what it does mean to be a contractor versus a full time. And for me, this is kind of a signal of it's another maturing phase of stablecoins for people that are, because likely if you're full time, you're not staying on for 3 to 6 months. Ideally, you're there for 2, 3, 4 years, and this is a career oriented job, and it
that's
does
right.
signal that these are becoming such an influential piece of everyday people's finances that they want their payroll in it, not just the gig work that is paying the bills for the month, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't realize is doing local employee payroll well is really tough because of all of the different localized regulation that you have. And so that is something that Deal has done really well, and that's something that they're rapidly expanding. To your point, oftentimes when you work with a contractor, it might be for 3 months, 6 months, kind of these shorter time frames. What's really exciting on the employee side is these are much longer engagements, right? Employees are typically with you for a year, 2 years, 5 years plus. And
Mm,
for me, this is a full circle moment personally because when I first started Mural around 4.5 years ago, we started working with contractors in Argentina, in Colombia,
yeah.
and we were paying them out in stablecoin. Right. And then fast forward to now, we've actually moved over to Deal, and we are now going to use the very
That's
feature
great.
that we've built, with Deal for our own team. And I'm very excited for all the other teams, all the other companies out there that are going to use this. And, at the end of the day, we view stablecoins as this new database that everyone's building new applications on top of this new database. And so it's been really exciting to see companies like Dollar App, Arc, for instance, Letio, all these other companies, right, that are connected to this new database, and it is now this new instant database that everyone can transact with. So it's been amazing to
Yeah.
see how much this space has matured.
So
I'm
I want to
smiling
dig in.
because of your even like the way that you think about this as a database. It just makes me smile knowing your background a little bit. I don't know if Zach, that's where you were gonna go, but
No, I was
um,
actually just gonna go more of just like a really quick, like we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but I think the natural progression that I asked then, does Deal launch their own stablecoin one day? Should
Great
they?
question.
Should they not? Think I think the answer I would say, yeah, you probably should. And again, if you look at it from a database programmable money perspective, obviously you go down the revenue route, which it's a nice to have, but from a compliance, from a how you can control money moves throughout your 150 organizations worldwide. I think it makes a lot of sense, but
Yeah.
maybe that's what
Yeah.
we'll be covering in 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember we went through that phase where everyone was launching their own stablecoin, and I think at the end of the day, it comes down to what is the actual utility you want, and are you looking to maximize revenue with assets that are sitting somewhere? And if so, what are the different routes to maximizing that asset return? And one way could be launching your own
Mm,
stablecoin, but I believe there are a lot of other ways as well. And so I'd be curious, from their standpoint, what are they looking to maximize and what are they optimizing for? It seems like right now what they're optimizing for is really upgrading their existing stack to becoming a stablecoin blockchain native stack, and that they have identified this opportunity to actually maybe even replace or augment some of the existing infrastructure with some of this newer infrastructure as more folks
mm.
connect in. And so I imagine a lot more companies will follow Deal in this instance. And A lot of governments in countries as well will follow this. You can imagine a world in which taxes are done through this as well through stablecoins.
Sinclair, you guys have, you said 4+ years you've been around. The scale of partnerships and deals that you're closing is just really impressive. It feels like you guys are really hitting an awesome stride with the last time we were catching up, it was TaxBit. Now you have Deal. As you guys think about the core business, I know you've had both like the actual dashboard that people can use and go in and use this type of functionality, but then you have these really interesting underlying APIs and Rails that companies can use for real-time payments, global accounts. How do you think about the differences lately on the more like no code dashboard versus what you're seeing on the API side? Are you leaning toward
Yeah.
more of this API first narrative?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, you've really seen the full evolution here. So we are absolutely leaning more into the API infrastructure. And what we have seen is that a lot of people are looking to use what we've built and just integrate it directly into their platforms. And the couple of things that we've really been leaning in. One is the API infrastructure. Two is agentic compliance, which I believe we started speaking a little bit
Yeah,
last time we
you
spoke.
did.
And now that's fully in production. So I'll share a little more what agentic compliance actually looks like. We've been investing heavily in our money transmission licenses, direct connectivity into the banks here in the US and abroad as well, which has allowed us to close larger companies like Deel, for instance, like Bolt, for instance, and many more. And then we've been really investing heavily into our forward deployed engineering team, where this is something we took from our days at Palantir, working with some of the largest Fortune 100s and 500s out there. We will deploy forward deployed engineers with the customer who will then understand the edge cases of the use case that people are missing. And then we will actually, those forward deployed engineers will actually ship code and then turn that around same day or same week. And so we're catching a lot of the edge cases, which in the payments world typically happens around compliance, regulation, scalability as well, data integrations into different local systems. And so that has been some of the most powerful transformations we've been doing over the past 6 months. And yeah, very excited about just continuing to amplify the mission of other businesses out there.
How does that differ from maybe how typically companies build, or that the what you learned at Palantir, this forward deployed model? Like, how would you contrast that to maybe how typical products are built, and why is that better in your view?
Yeah, so you have the model which is self-serve, right? Where you just go to someone's company, someone's website, API docs, and then you just start integrating, right? There is the model of, hey, should we just build this in-house and kind of stitch together all of these different tools? And then there's the model of, forward deployed engineering, where you partner with someone to really accelerate the integration and the go-to-market. And those are all different routes. For us, what we've seen is if you are a business, you want to move quickly, you want to move compliantly, and you don't want to stitch together all of these different tools, we have found that the forward deployed engineering motion actually works really well because it ensures that we meet the compliance regulatory integration obligations for that business. And instead of something that might take 6 months to a year to build out and integrate, here it's a matter of days, weeks, right, to actually get up and running. So it's always the typical build versus buy, right? And one of the things that we have been working on has been ability to move from the proposal, which is usually in a PDF, right, where you're wondering, all right, how can I actually use this technology, to instantly generated demos that are tailored towards your use case that we can generate on the fly. That is directly integrated with our staging and production stack, so that you actually leave with this link, this shareable link, so that you can actually test it out and share it internally with your team. Right. So that's
Mm.
something that we're launching soon that a couple of folks have access to. You all will have access to it as well, right? If you want to start testing it out and see, what can Stable Dash do with this? Like what can we actually integrate more payments into the business? And you really want to feel it, right? The magic moment is feeling
Yeah.
it and seeing how quickly you can stand it up, and knowing that you have humans on the other side who are going to help you accelerate the actual build.
I think you brought up a good point, and this kind of covers all aspects of the space when we talk about things from yield to agentic payments to compliance flows to even what we talked about with EOR and how the money goes. Coast is a great
Mm,
sponsor and supporter of the show where they help to visualize these APIs. And that's something I think Drew and I are both passionate about, is trying to think like, how do we pair visuals with these at times very abstract concepts? Because just more on the yield DeFi side, but you see USDE and you see
mm,
USX, who we had on the show earlier. And on the surface, you're like, oh, my mental model is these are two very similar yield products. How are they actually working under the hood? And if you try to go actually find a visual, you're either scouring the docs or they just don't exist. So
that's right.
all that to say is I would definitely take you up on that offer to say, hey, what does this look like in practice? How do we share what this actually it feels a little stickier when you have a visual to pair with anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I would say the other thing is everyone's talking about agentic payments. We are not talking about agentic payments. We're talking about agentic compliance.
Mm.
And
Yep.
agentic compliance is really where it's at, right? Because a lot of the hurdles with payments is you actually don't necessarily want an agent that's moving 1,000, 100,000. Yeah, there it is. Agentic compliance. You don't want an agent that is moving 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 on behalf of you quite yet, right? Not yet. It will happen. Right now, agentic compliance is how do we decrease the time that it takes to review a business application or an individual application, KYB, KYC? How do we package the data and then transmit that to the relevant parties, right? If we are moving that data to a banking partner, for instance, how do we package that data, do that initial scan, and then decrease the back and forths between the customer and their end users and our team reviewing, right? And so a lot of the back and forth that typically happens over email, we're actually moving that such that as you're uploading your information, you're getting real time feedback on, hey, this document's incorrect. Did you mean to do this one? And all of that's being localized as well. So it's localized to the language, it's localized to the local regulation as well, and it's going to keep adapting and evolving very quickly.
Do you feel like when you think about one of the core focuses of Mural and the key advantages you have given your background, would you say compliance is one of those like secret weapons to the business and understanding the nuances of that, the friction that's typically surrounding that? Like how do you think about that as a competitive edge?
I would say compliance is a very strong competitive edge of ours, and it will continue to be. We're investing heavily there. The way we think about it is, one, it's a data integration problem where how do we make sure to bring in the right data quickly and efficiently? And then two, how do you build the right agentic stack right in house such that you can quickly process and provide feedback? And so our CTO Parker actually worked on a lot of the back end LLM infrastructure deployment at Palantir and now is replicating a lot of that here at Mural. And it's been absolutely incredible seeing him really drive that team wide, company wide. And compliance has been the starting point, and now we're just deploying it to different aspects of the business.
We're in such a interesting moment for on-chain FX. It seems like this topic around being able to convert, receive, swap at scale. It seems like we're entering into a really interesting growth phase around some of this and what's possible. We've talked to a handful of
Mm,
teams building in this like stablecoin powered FX space. That seems to be one of the core pieces here, and maybe that goes back a little bit. I'd love to break down the practical fiat to fiat capabilities you guys are talking about with Deel. Like it sounds like that specifically with this use case was like a core need that they had of we need to move fiat from this bank account and fiat needs to land in another bank account. Where do things like stable coins become competitively advantageous in those flows? Or is something like that with Deal or stable coins maybe happening after the fact? What does that look like?
Yeah, right now the fiat component is still really important because there's not enough liquidity depth in the stablecoin world and local stablecoins yet. As local stablecoins come online and as the liquidity gets built out, we're going to see more of that on-chain FX happening. But right now, it's still very much so, in the fiat world. And for us, it's been a process of integrating these local real-time networks and working with different local banking partners that can actually support the right use cases around payroll and more. And so it's actually been a much heavier lift than we have anticipated directly working with those banks and standing them up. It's been interesting though, because we've had our first set of customers ask us for local stablecoins, like local
Mhm.
Colombian peso stablecoin, which a year ago we were not hearing about.
Mm.
And it seems like local stablecoins are appearing in markets where it is tough to settle in real time with local fiat. And so Colombia is a good example of that, where you have Breve, which is the real time payment network there that just got rolled out, but it has some size limitations. And so some people are looking to move towards local Colombian peso stablecoins. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm curious if you all have seen some of those local stablecoins pop up out there, and how you see the market evolving on that front.
You know, first month of the show, it felt like we talked about it a lot, and maybe
Mm,
that's, because we had Howdon on from Codex, Dave on from Etherfuse, which I know he's definitely been beating that drum. And, we talked about this in the last segment where we hear it anecdotally from founders and builders in the space that demand is growing. Who we want to talk to more is who's generating that demand. Those companies and those clients that actually do want them. How are they integrating them into their actually payment flows? So,
mm,
I mean, I'd break it down like we have three categories right now, maybe call it four that are constantly on the rise. Obviously, neo finance and infrastructure is a big one. Where agentic payments and I would actually add in agentic compliance in that because you've brought it up. We had to keel on from Predicate. That was a great segment as well. So those buckets. On-chain FX is still there, but it's definitely kind of riding the waves. I will say, I think in the news on Tuesday, we covered two new non-USD stablecoins launching. Tether did the Georgian lira, and then there was JPYC, I think, raise, almost 20 million. And
in
then the
Japan. Yeah.
last,
mm,
yeah, in Japan. And then the last bucket, I would say that we see a lot of conversations kind of converging around is credit, trade
right.
finance, but even also the credit coupe especially.
But where
I
does the
one
like more I'm confused a little bit on the requirements around what something needs to like it sounds like Sinclair fiat to fiat needs to happen for this to qualify as like what deal is needing. So if that is the case, are stablecoins being looped in once the funds settle in fiat, and then once
Mm,
that happens, you can then bring stablecoins into the fold from a utility standpoint. If they're not, are they used actually like in between in creative ways to make
got
it
it.
work? How does that work?
Yeah, so they're actually used after the fiat leg.
mm,
So we'll go from a deal fiat account to the employee local fiat account, and then to a stablecoin wallet. Right, could be an external or internal stablecoin wallet. And that first component, once again, is from a regulatory and legal standpoint. And then, that last component is moving it out in stablecoins so that you can move it into any stablecoin compatible account or wallet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay. That's
it's
helpful.
kind of it's different than your traditional stablecoin sandwich where it's fiat stablecoin fiat. Here it's
yeah.
fiat stablecoin.
Really
Uh,
cool. Really cool. I like that.
Sinclair, I wanted to ask like more of like a founder journey oriented question, because we've seen this quite a bit. Where I think Dakota also comes to mind as somebody who started on this more banking terminal type experience, and then it says, "Hey, infrastructure is where it's at." And obviously, I'm curious, like, how do your convictions change as a founder? Was there a moment where you're like, I know I should go this direction, but I don't want to
mm,
because this was my baby and this is what I set out to build. I can even remember way back in season 2 of Stable Minded where you're saying, "Hey, we've, abstracted away crypto and stable coins," and then stable coins kind of started to come back into the conversation. So you're like, "Okay, we
yeah.
do need to talk about those." What has that journey been like? And what would your advice be to other founders that are at inflection points when I don't want to call it a pivot, but they need to evolve
Yeah.
and
Mm.
kind of step into this new era?
It's a great question. That's one thing we've been really good at is just continuing to evolve and really listening to our customers. And so the thing that has been driving us over time has been listening to our customers, seeing how the market is evolving, and just a deeper understanding that as after the Genius Act, more and more businesses were open to integrating this technology, but
Yeah.
didn't quite know how to do it. And so we actually had a very natural progression where we had all these customers asking us, "Hey, can we integrate this?" And so it was a combination of listening to the market, our existing customers and new ones. And then the other aspect is just us asking ourselves and being very honest with ourselves, what is our superpower? what are we world class in? And when we kept on reflecting with that question, we came to the conclusion that what we are world class in is building great software, great APIs, great integrations, and
Mm,
really doing what we did incredibly well, before at Palantir and at these other businesses that touched all of this data and software and just applying it to the money movement and money storage space. And so it's going
mm,
back to, it's funny how in the founder life cycle, as you guys know, you start here, you go over here, and then you come back here. We're somehow back to our roots, which is integrating and building great software and providing that connective tissue and keeping up with the times, right? And understanding
yeah.
how things are evolving. Just as you guys have seen as well, right? Seeing that a lot of existing businesses are looking to integrate this technology. And so opening the aperture from the crypto native circle over towards the existing market.
Yeah. But it is also interesting how much of the crypto native circle also needs to be educated uh, to some degree on the TradFi side of things, on the practical side of payments, because it's almost like you go so far down the rabbit hole, and it's the crypto natives need to go one way, and then the
Totally.
TradFi
And you
natives need to go
start
another.
thinking about layer 2, 3, 4, and yeah, you're really thinking through all of these lower level,
Yeah.
blockchain swapping, token swapping, et cetera. And then there's the other aspect, which is, hey, how do we make this legal? How do we make this compliant? How does this integrate into our existing accounting systems, our existing
Mm,
banking systems? And there's it's connectivity into the existing infrastructure.
yeah. Absolutely.
Sinclair, I'm looking at the website. Looks like you guys have a handful of roles open. I love this term. We build financial systems for the global economy of tomorrow. Tell us
What are you?
about the
Can you pull up what you're
opportunities.
looking at, Drew?
Just the
Yeah.
careers page. It looks like you guys have like some sales stuff, growth and marketing, finance. Where does the opportunity, like where are you guys growing into, and what does the future of like rest of year look like for Mural Pay or Mural?
Excellent.
Sorry, I'm gonna drop in the pay as of now.
Yeah. Mural. So we are hiring for 10 positions at the moment, actually many more, but around 10. We haven't fully updated that page yet, but here are a couple of the roles that we're really excited about. One is marketing. We haven't really done much marketing to date, and we are looking to do a lot more of that. So if you know of a great marketing person, or if you're that, we would love to chat with you. Two is on the engineering side, looking for great full stack developers and developers that have had experience with cards. So, specifically, debit, credit card acquiring, not the issuance front, on the acquiring front. We are looking for great forward deployed engineers, what we call deltas here at Mural. So those are engineers that are a little more customer facing. We are hiring across. This is really really important on the sales side. We need more sales folks. So if you are a
Uh-huh.
great seller, a great account executive, would love to chat. We're hiring on a couple compliance roles and then a go-to-market engineer role. Data engineer turned go-to-market engineer. So those are a couple of the roles. We will be announcing some exciting news around capital and funding as well over the coming weeks. So stay tuned there.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Here we go.
we we're bringing in some exciting folks, and yeah, now is where Mural is definitely entering a new chapter right now. Like
Mm.
you have caught me and the team at a really exciting point of inflection where it feels like a whole new Mural that's about to come. It's a whole new Mural, and I could not be more proud of our team that we're building. There we go. Let the money bring in.
Let the money run, man. You've worked for it. Okay. Well, we are very excited to hear more on that. Keep us posted on when that news is ready to
Yeah.
break, and we can help with that. And
Or
yeah,
or
let's stay
say
close
on-chain
on.
FX, once as that develops too, we'd love to hear more about what you're seeing boots on the ground in these conversations.
Happy to. And how can I and the team help you guys?
Zach, what do
Man,
you think?
that's a good question. So we've kind of gotten like lumped into this like crypto native show bubble. which we kind of knew would happen just given the
Yes.
nature of the conversations. We just spend a lot of time thinking like, how do we get in front of a more fintech, modern money focused crowd?
Mhm.
And also what do they want to talk about? What do they want to hear about? What do they need to learn about?
Yeah.
Because it's like sometimes we're just falling down the rabbit hole, and I think we should reach our hand out and try to grab the ladder and say, hey, hold
Yeah.
on, we need to bring it back to basics sometimes. So
Love
I
it.
think for me that's the big focus is what does that fintech
We wanna
money
talk
crowd.
to people who are adopting, like, we wanna talk to you guys, obviously, but we also wanna talk
And probably
with
our customers
the
too.
Deals and the
Yeah.
Bolts. So if you could help connect us with the people on their side who are
Love it.
also, like, prioritizing the things that they love about Mural, and there are, I'm sure, a lot of awesome internal champions who you guys work with who are, like, beating that drum within their own organizations, and so for us, I think we've done a really, really great job. I would argue one of the best jobs in the space
Oh,
of highlighting the infrastructure stack and all the companies that are building the tools and the building blocks. I think what we want to do now is work with those companies strategically to then bring in their customers and the people
Great.
that they are selling to amplify those priorities and use those as like kind of educational material to help others in other companies learn how to think about this, because there's enough like really cool use cases, and we're closing some interesting like research sponsorships that focus on topic driven things that could be cool. Zach
Excellent.
is pulling up here like a current view of, is this everyone we've met with? It's kind of hard to see, but
I
maybe if
think
you zoom
yeah, it's
in.
hard to see. I'm trying to well, if I zoom in, it gets cut off. So maybe this is like a oh yeah, see.
Yeah, that's a good, if you want to go through those briefly, but
Yeah,
that view
that's
is helpful. So this is a
Hold
view
on.
of all of
I'm
the.
struggling right now. I'm
oh,
being a
can you
boomer
send
with
this
my
over? This is great.
technology.
This is cool.
No, this is something that we've been ideating and we were trying to figure out how we integrate it with our
Mm,
website. But obviously we have like market maps of just what's out there right now.
yeah.
We're just thinking about like, hey, what's the market map of everybody we've talked to? I love what uh we talked to the principal from 1KX last week, and she brought up this idea of like a Zettelkasten, which is being able to take notes and how all of that intertwines like within, your mind. But I'm even thinking of all of these conversations and all of these sectors right now. How do they, interconnect? How are they woven together? What are the threads through all these conversations? And it is just cool to be able to look at this and be like, oh wow, we've talked with this many companies in the past
Cool.
3 months of
Where did
doing
we
this
put
show.
Mural? I'm trying to find Mural in
Where
here. Where where
seems like
where are
we're
they
at
They're
falling?
not in. They're not
payments,
in here. This
payments and
this is
settlement.
I think we need
That's
to
where you want to be,
redo
payments and settlement.
Well, it seems like you all have placed us in payments and settlement. It's interesting because
Yeah, yeah.
we have done this shift from before we were really focusing on FX and cross border payments, right, and payments and settlements, and now where we're leaning very heavily on is the accounts, and the account being a
mm,
superposition of bank accounts and stablecoin accounts, and the account is the core ontological object upon which businesses build applications on top of it. So really moving, we see cross border and FX as a feature, not the core product, not the core driver for us.
yeah.
The core driver is really accounts, right? And then building products on top of that accounts.
I think
So
even when
cool.
we were going and making this, it was a little bit hard to figure out, like, what are these clear-cut categories? Because
Yeah.
most of it is like, the Venn
There's a lot of
diagrams of a
overlap.
lot of pe there's so much overlap in what these companies are doing that I'm looking at this again, I'm like, "Yeah, before I post this, we're probably gonna have to do
Yeah,
some
we need some peer
polishing
review. So
on
peer
the
review would be
company
great.
space."
Happy to help. Well, I have
Oh
to.
man.
This was really a pleasure. Thank you again for taking the time.
Yeah.
And Zach and Drew, just congrats again. Congrats again on what you're building, on growing it. And yeah, I mean, once again, we're going to look back at these days. This is when things were just getting started. Things were just getting started when we were talking back in the day, and then now too. And you guys are core to the ecosystem. So thank you again for everything you do.
Likewise, man.
Awesome.